Okay, so we always talk about learning as this like intellectual thing, right? Like our brains are just sponges soaking up facts and
Yeah.
figures and stuff. But like have you ever noticed how when you're like totally stressed out about something
Mm.
or even like super excited about something else, it's like way harder to concentrate on like anything new?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like that feeling, that's like the key to what we're going to be looking at today.
Right.
It's all about the connection between emotions and learning.
Exactly. Yeah, we're diving deep into how emotions and learning are all mixed up together.
Totally.
And we're using CLT or cognitive load theory as our main framework.
Okay, cool.
And our guide for all this is an article called Four Ways of Considering Emotion in Cognitive Load Theory
Okay,
by Jan L. Plass and Slava Kaliga.
gotcha.
So,
So basically what we're trying to figure out today is how like all those feelings we have,
yeah.
all those like messy, unpredictable emotions,
Yeah.
how do they actually shape the way we learn new stuff? Like how well we take in new information, how we process it, and probably the most important thing, how well we remember it later on.
Absolutely.
So like if you can unlock this whole emotional side of learning, I feel like that would give you a huge advantage.
For sure. And to set the scene a little bit, let's just quickly recap what cognitive load theory is all about.
Okay, yeah, good idea.
Basically, CLT says that our working memory, that mental space where we're actively thinking and processing things right now.
Yeah.
Well, it has a limited capacity.
Let's say
If you try and juggle too many balls at once,
Yeah,
eventually you're going to drop some, right?
right. Makes
Yeah.
sense. And I know that within this whole juggling act, there are different types of load, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So first there's that intrinsic load,
Right.
which is basically about how complex the stuff you're trying to learn actually is.
Yeah.
So like obviously trying to understand something super complicated like astrophysics is going to be way more demanding than learning a new recipe.
Right.
But like that's kind of a good thing, right? It's like a productive struggle.
Yeah, it's the essential mental work you got to do
Right.
to actually learn the material itself.
Okay, so that's intrinsic load.
Exactly.
Then we have this other kind of load,
Yeah.
extraneous load.
Right.
And this is kind of the annoying one, right?
Yeah, it's like the mental clutter that gets in
Yeah.
the way of learning.
Totally. It's like when you have a really poorly designed instruction manual, that's more confusing than it is helpful.
Exactly.
It just creates like extra work for your brain.
It's totally unproductive.
Right. Okay, so
Right.
for ages, the focus has been on trying to manage these two types of load.
Right.
Like make that intrinsic stuff manageable and get rid of all that extraneous clutter.
Yeah.
But it sounds like our source material is saying there's like this crucial missing piece.
There is, yeah.
Emotions.
Emotions, exactly. And for the most part, our emotions haven't really been included in traditional CLT.
Okay, interesting.
And that's where these four perspectives come in.
Okay.
They give us some really cool ways to bring emotion into the mix and get a more complete understanding of how learning actually happens.
Okay, so let's jump right into the first perspective.
Okay.
Emotion as extraneous cognitive load.
Yeah.
And this one just makes so much sense to me because when I'm really stressed out about something, it feels like I can't really focus on anything else.
Right. It's like your brain just doesn't have the space for anything new.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's basically the main idea here.
Okay.
This perspective sees emotions as potential distractions
Yeah,
that use up those limited working memory resources we were talking about.
right.
The article mentions the suppression hypothesis from resource allocation theory,
Sure.
which basically means that trying to deal with your emotions
Yeah.
can actually take away mental energy from the actual learning task at hand.
So it's like my brain is trying to do two things at once, trying to understand this new concept and at the same time trying to manage whatever I'm feeling.
Right.
And there's just isn't enough space to do both well.
Exactly. And the authors talk about two main ways this happens.
Okay.
The first one is task extra processing,
Okay.
which basically means getting caught up in your own emotional state
Yeah.
and then trying to regulate those feelings.
Right.
So a classic example is test anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
For
sure.
And there's some research on this back in 1998 by Zeidner that really highlighted this idea that if you're constantly worried about failing a test, well, that worry is taking up mental space
Right.
that could be used to remember or understand the material.
Totally. It's like you get stuck in this inner monologue of doom.
Yeah.
And it just takes over everything.
Exactly.
And the article also mentioned stereotype threat, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
That was Steele and Aronson's work in 1995.
Yeah, 1995, exactly. And stereotype threat is where people who belong to groups that are negatively stereotyped
Right.
feel anxious about like confirming those stereotypes, and this can lead to this task extra processing as well.
Right. So they're so worried about proving the stereotype right
Yeah,
that it actually makes them perform worse.
exactly. And there's similar research by Bylock and some other researchers in 2004
Okay.
that showed that even just being in a high pressure situation like a test
Yeah.
can trigger stress.
Right.
And this can like flood your working memory with all these thoughts about your performance.
Yeah. Instead of actually like thinking about the problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's crazy.
So it's like your brain is just overwhelmed with all this extra stuff.
Right. Okay. So that was the first way.
Yeah. Task extra processing.
And then the second one was task irrelevant processing. Right.
Yeah.
And this is where our emotions kind of drag our attention towards things that are totally unrelated to what we're actually trying to learn.
Exactly. So your emotions, whether they're positive or negative, can trigger memories or thoughts that have nothing to do with the learning task.
Oh, wow.
And a good example of this is the seductive details effect.
This has been studied a lot by Harp and Mayer and also Park and some other colleagues.
Okay.
And it's basically where learning materials are made to be more interesting
Yeah.
by adding in extra details
Okay.
that grab your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not actually important for understanding the main concepts.
Oh, yeah. I think I know exactly what you mean. It's like when you're watching a history documentary
Yeah.
and they spend ages talking about like the dramatic personal life of a historical figure,
Right.
which is interesting, but it doesn't really help you understand the bigger historical context.
Exactly. And while these seductive details might grab your attention at first
Yeah.
and even make the material seem more exciting,
Hmm.
your brain is still using up energy to process all this irrelevant information.
Right.
And this can actually overload your working memory.
So it's like a trick.
It can be.
It seems more fun, but it's
Yeah.
actually making it harder to learn.
Right, because all that brain power you're using for those extra details is basically unproductive.
It's becoming extraneous load.
Exactly. So one good takeaway here might be to be careful of materials that seem to care more about entertaining you
Right.
than actually teaching you the important stuff.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Because they might be hurting your understanding without you even realizing it.
Interesting. Okay, so perspective one
Yeah.
is all about how our feelings can be like mental clutter, taking up space in our brains with worries,
Yeah.
or distracting us with things that seem interesting but aren't actually that important.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on to perspective two.
Okay.
Emotion as a factor affecting memory.
Right.
And this sounds like it's going way beyond just being distracted in the moment.
It is. Yeah, it's going deeper.
Okay.
This perspective looks at how emotions actually change the processes of memory itself.
Okay, so like how we encode new information.
Yes, exactly how we store it over time
Mm.
and how we retrieve it later.
Okay.
And there's some research by Whalen and colleagues from 1998
Okay.
that suggests that this can even happen subconsciously.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So like without us even knowing it.
Exactly.
That's crazy. So how does emotion have this effect on our memory?
Well, one way is through how emotional arousal focuses our attention.
Okay.
And there's a study from 2006 by Labar and Cabeza
Sure.
that found that when we experience an emotion, our attention kind of narrows in
Yeah.
on the most important information related to that emotion.
So like from an evolutionary perspective, that makes sense, right?
It does, yeah.
Like if there's a threat,
Yeah,
we need to focus on that.
exactly. It helps us to quickly focus on potential threats or rewards.
Okay, so if I'm learning about something and there's this like emotional element to it,
Mm-hmm.
my brain is probably going to prioritize remembering that emotional part.
Exactly. But the article also says that emotions can affect our overall cognitive resources in a more general way.
Okay.
So, for example, positive emotions might broaden our cognitive resources.
Really?
Yeah, there's research from the 80s by Eisen
Okay.
showing that positive emotions can lead to more creativity
Interesting.
and even more pro-social behavior. So you're more likely to help others when you're feeling good.
Okay.
And this supports the facilitation hypothesis,
Right.
which basically says that positive emotions make your brain work better.
So it's like a positive mood opens up your mind.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like I'm more creative when I'm in a good mood.
Right.
It's like you're more open to new ideas.
Yeah.
So maybe if you can like intentionally create a positive learning environment, it could actually help you learn more effectively.
It could. Yeah. And there's some theories about how this works.
Well.
So like Laird and his colleagues suggested back in 1982 that
Ah.
positive emotions might act as a cue to trigger positive memories.
Okay.
So it's like you have access to a wider range of your past experiences.
Right.
And then Bless and some other researchers propose that being in a good mood might help us use our cognitive resources more efficiently.
Okay.
And then there's a study by Levins and Phelps that found that positive mood could help with executive functions,
Okay.
which are like higher level thinking skills.
Oh, wow. Okay, so positive emotions can actually make our brains work better.
Yeah, it seems that way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What about negative emotions, though?
Well, research suggests that they often have the opposite effect.
Oh,
So negative emotions can sometimes narrow our cognitive resources.
interesting.
And this was proposed by Fredrickson in 2003.
Okay.
And this idea that negative emotions narrow our focus might explain why Eisen and his colleagues also found that negative emotions can sometimes block creativity.
Yeah, all right.
And then Pickrun and Linenbrink Garcia's work in 2012 linked negative emotions during learning with worse learning outcomes.
Okay, so if you're feeling down or stressed while you're trying to learn,
Right.
it's like you might miss the bigger picture
Yeah,
or
exactly.
struggle to make those creative connections.
Because your focus is too narrow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like when I'm anxious, I get so fixated on like one tiny detail that I miss the main point.
Exactly. And the article also talked about these concepts of mood-dependent memory and mood-congruent memory. So mood-dependent memory, which was researched by Bauer and Lewis and Critchley,
Yeah.
suggests that we're better at remembering information when our mood, at the time of remembering,
Yeah.
matches our mood when we first learned it.
Okay, that's interesting.
So if you learn something when you're happy, you might remember it better when you're happy again.
Right.
And then mood-congruent memory,
Mm-hmm.
which Lewis and Williams studied,
Yeah.
says that we're more likely to encode new information
Okay.
if our current mood matches the emotional tone of that information.
Okay, so like if you're learning about something sad, you're more likely to remember it if you're already feeling sad.
Exactly. So it seems like our mood actually affects how well we learn and remember things.
Yeah, it's not just about being distracted in the moment.
Right.
It's like our emotions have a much deeper impact on our memory.
They do, yeah.
And the article also talked about emotion and long-term memory.
Right. Yeah.
Like how emotions affect how memories are stored over time.
Exactly. And there's research by Kleinsmith and colleagues in Sherritt and Phelps that's shown that emotion plays a big role in consolidating memories.
Okay.
So it helps to turn those like initial fragile memories into more stable, long-lasting ones. And a key player in all of this seems to be the amygdala.
Okay, the amygdala.
Which is the part of the brain that processes emotions.
Right.
And this was highlighted by Labar and Cabeza in their research.
Okay, so the amygdala is like the emotional center of the brain.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so perspective 2 shows us that emotion is this really powerful force that shapes our memory.
Yeah.
It affects what we pay attention to, how well we remember things, and even how those memories become permanent.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Let's move on to perspective 3.
Okay.
Emotion as intrinsic cognitive load.
Right.
Now, this one sounds a bit confusing to me at first.
Yeah.
Because how can an emotion be part of the actual learning task?
Well, this perspective focuses on situations where actually understanding and managing your emotions is the main learning goal. So, like, a good example is medicine.
Right.
And this was talked about by Fraser and colleagues in 2015.
Okay.
So medical students have to learn how to handle really intense emotional situations.
Yeah, of course.
Like delivering bad news
Right.
or coping with the death of a patient.
Right.
So in these cases, being able to regulate their own emotions isn't just something that might get in the way of their learning. It's an absolutely essential skill.
Right. They need to learn how to deal with those emotions.
Exactly.
Okay, I see. So the mental energy they use to process and regulate those emotions becomes part of the learning process itself.
Exactly. It's part of what makes learning that skill difficult.
Okay, so it's like learning to do a complex surgery while also learning to manage the stress and the emotional weight of that responsibility.
Right.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And the article also mentioned this study by Fraser and colleagues in 2014.
Yes.
Where medical students had to do this simulated patient death scenario.
Yes, a very intense simulation.
Yeah, and the students who had more intense negative emotions during the simulation, they actually reported higher levels of cognitive load, and then they had worse learning outcomes.
Exactly.
So it's like all that mental energy they were using to deal with their emotions was taking away from their ability to actually learn from the experience.
Right.
Okay. And this perspective also brings in dual coding theory. or DCT.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And this idea of a dual channel assumption for emotion.
Right.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, so dual coding theory was proposed by Pivio,
Okay.
and it basically says that we process information through two different but interconnected systems.
Okay.
One for verbal information like language,
Right.
and one for nonverbal information like images, sounds, and things like that.
Correct.
And this is the basis of the modality effect,
Okay.
which Mayer and Jins, among others, have studied.
Yeah.
And the modality effect basically says that presenting verbal information as spoken words along with visuals is often more effective for learning than just using text on a screen
Okay, right.
because it engages both of those processing channels.
Makes sense.
So you're not overloading the visual channel.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So how do emotions fit into this whole dual channel thing?
Well, the dual channel assumption for emotion suggests that our brains might process emotional information through a separate channel.
Okay.
That's distinct from both the verbal and nonverbal systems.
So like a third channel.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's some evidence for this.
Okay.
Like research has shown that concrete words, which tend to evoke stronger emotions,
Yeah.
are often remembered better than abstract words.
Okay.
And this was found by Bradley and colleagues and Goots and colleagues.
Okay.
And also the fact that emotions themselves can act as a cue to help us retrieve memories,
Right.
which Eisen and colleagues found back in 1978,
Okay.
also supports this idea.
So it's like emotions give our brains another way to access information. Wow, so it could be like a third code that our brain uses.
Yeah, along with words and images.
That's so cool.
And Pivio himself has argued that there's a lot of evidence to support this idea,
Okay.
that emotion is part of the dual coding framework.
Right.
And then there are also neuroimaging studies,
Oh,
like
sure.
Phelps's research from 2004,
Yeah.
that have shown that there are different areas of the brain involved in processing emotions
Yeah.
and processing declarative memory.
Okay.
So emotions seem to be processed mainly in the amygdala,
Right.
and declarative memory is processed mainly in the hippocampus.
Okay.
And then there's a study by Lanius and colleagues from 2004 on
Okay.
PTSD patients
Right.
that found some unusual connections between areas of the brain that process verbal information
Yeah.
and areas that process traumatic emotional experiences.
Wow, that's interesting.
And this all ties in with broader models of learning, like the integrated model of cognitive affective learning with media, or ICLM, which was
No.
developed by Plass and Kaplan.
Yeah.
And in ICAL, emotion processing is considered to be just as important as visual and verbal processing.
Okay.
But it's worth mentioning that the article does say that this dual channel view for emotion within CLT
Yeah.
still needs more research to be like fully confirmed.
Right, of course. Okay, so emotion might not just be something that adds to the mental burden.
Yeah.
It could actually be a really valuable way for us to process and remember information.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Let's move on to perspective 4.
Okay.
Emotion affecting motivation to increase cognitive effort.
All right.
And this one really speaks to how our feelings can actually motivate us to work harder when we're learning.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're really interested in something,
Mm-hmm.
you're way more likely to put in the time and effort to actually understand it.
For sure.
Like when I'm really into a topic, I could spend hours reading and thinking about it, and it doesn't even feel like work.
Exactly.
And just fun.
And positive emotions,
Yeah.
especially the ones that are more activating.
Yeah, okay.
Like joy and excitement have been shown to increase intrinsic motivation,
Okay.
which is basically that internal drive to learn just for the sake of learning.
Right, because it's interesting.
Yeah, and this was found by Erez and Eisen, and also Eisen and Reeve.
Okay.
And this is a big idea in the field of emotional design,
Right.
where they try to use things like warm colors
Yeah.
and rounded shapes and learning materials
Okay.
to make the learning environment more appealing
Right.
and hopefully increase motivation.
That makes sense.
And some people who have explored this are Heidig and colleagues and colleagues.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that there's a difference between activating positive emotions like enthusiasm
Yeah.
and deactivating positive emotions like contentment.
Right.
So this is a point made by Pekron and Linenbrink Garcia
Okay.
that feeling content is nice,
Hmm.
but it might not actually push you to put in more effort when you're learning.
Right. It's like you're relaxed, but not necessarily driven.
Exactly.
Okay, what about negative emotions? Can they ever actually motivate us to learn more?
Well, the article talks about the mood repair hypothesis,
Okay.
which basically says that when we're in a bad mood,
Yeah.
we might be motivated to do things like learn new things as a way to try and feel better
Right.
So, like, distract ourselves. Yeah, and this was proposed by Bless and Fiedler.
Okay.
And Nurser and colleagues have done some research on this.
Right.
But there isn't a lot of evidence to support the idea that negative emotions are the main reason why we might put more effort into learning.
True.
But Pickrun and Linenbrink Garcia suggest that negative emotions might motivate effort as a way to avoid bad outcomes.
Okay, right. So, like, if you're scared of failing a test,
Exactly.
you might study more.
Right.
But it's more about avoiding something bad than actually wanting to learn.
Yeah, it's like fear-based motivation.
Right, not really driven by interest.
Exactly. And the article also talks about the personalization effect.
Okay.
Which is where using personalized language, like addressing the learner directly as you, can lead to better learning outcomes.
Okay.
And this was found by Moreno and Mayer.
Okay.
And one explanation for this is that this personalized approach can create positive emotions and increase motivation.
Okay.
And this was suggested by Ray and Steib.
Mm-hmm.
But research by Kuhl and Zander showed that this can actually backfire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if the learning material itself makes people anxious.
Okay, so like a personalized message about a stressful topic
Right.
might not actually have a good effect.
Exactly. So it shows how the emotions triggered by the way something is presented and the emotions triggered by the content itself
Right.
can interact in really complex ways.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's all about finding the right balance.
Yeah. Okay, so perspective 4 shows how our feelings can either encourage us to learn
Yeah.
or discourage us.
Right.
And the last thing the article talked about was the interval view of cognitive load and emotion,
Yes.
which was proposed by Kaluga and Singh.
Yeah.
So what's the main idea behind this interval view?
Well, it's a more dynamic way of thinking about cognitive load.
Oh.
Instead of seeing it as like a fixed characteristic of a learning task,
Yeah.
it sees cognitive load as the intensity of cognitive processing.
Okay.
That happens in short bursts,
Okay.
specifically related to achieving particular learning goals.
So it's like focusing on the mental effort you're using at each specific moment.
Exactly.
Okay, that's interesting.
And this idea really fits with how emotions work,
Right.
because our emotions tend to change pretty quickly.
They do.
And they're often tied to specific things that happen.
Yeah.
And this was shown in Russell's work on the dynamic model of emotions.
Okay.
So,
And so instead of thinking about like the overall difficulty of a topic, it's more about how much mental effort I'm using at each point in time
right,
as I try to understand a specific concept.
exactly.
Okay.
And Kaliga and Singh also suggest that there are 3 levels of learning goals.
Okay.
The first level is your goals before you even start learning, like getting motivated to learn. Right. Then there's the second level, which is about acquiring specific knowledge. And this is what traditional CLT has mostly focused on.
Right.
And then the third level is about developing more general knowledge.
Okay.
So the interval view lets us see how emotions might play different roles at each of these levels.
Okay, if that makes sense.
So, for example, you might have a negative emotion at the beginning,
Yeah.
and this might lead you to use a strategy to regulate that emotion.
Right.
And this strategy might even look like you're not paying attention,
Oh, wow.
but it's actually helping you to prepare emotionally for a more difficult learning goal later on.
So it's like a way of managing your emotions to be able to learn more effectively later.
Exactly.
And the article mentioned the Crystal Island game study by Sabaran and colleagues as an example of this, right?
It did, yeah.
So what looked like off-task behavior in that study
Yeah.
might have actually been the students using strategies to regulate their emotions.
Right.
So that they could learn better later on.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
And this view emphasizes that what we consider on-task behavior isn't always the same.
Right.
It can change depending on what you're trying to learn at that moment.
Right. So what's helpful at one point might not be helpful at another point.
Exactly.
And the article concluded by saying that because emotion and cognition are so interconnected in the brain,
right,
we need to include these more integrated perspectives in learning theories like CLT.
We do, yeah. And this was highlighted by research from Pessoa and also Ledoux and Brown.
Okay.
And basically it means that we can't think of our thoughts and feelings as separate things.
Yeah.
They're always influencing each other.
Right. So this traditional way of separating emotion and cognition doesn't really reflect how our brains actually work.
Exactly. And when we start to see this connection between emotions and thoughts, and we adopt this more dynamic interval view, it helps us to understand how our emotions shape our ability to learn.
Okay, awesome. So just to recap, we've explored 4 main ways that emotion interacts with cognitive load.
Right.
So first, as a potential source of distraction.
Yeah.
Second, as a major influence on our memory systems.
Right.
Third, as an actual part of the learning goal in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
And fourth, as a motivator that can either help us learn more effectively
Yes.
or make it more difficult.
Exact.
And this interval view gives us a way to understand how these interactions can change throughout the learning process.
It does, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive
It has, yeah.
into a topic that I think we all kind of know is important.
Right.
Like we all know that how we feel affects how we learn,
Yeah.
but I don't think we always appreciate how complex it really is.
Yeah, it's definitely more complex than it seems on the surface.
So next time you're trying to learn something new,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's for work or just for fun,
Yeah.
think about how your emotional state might be affecting your ability to learn.
Right?
And which of these four perspectives that we talked about today do you think best explains your own experiences with learning?
That's a great question.
And could you maybe even use this knowledge to help you learn more effectively in the future?
It's definitely something to think about.
It is, yeah.
It's given me a lot to think about as well.
Yeah, this deep dive has really just scratched the surface of this topic.
It has, yeah.
There's so much more to learn
Absolutely.
about how our emotions and our thoughts work together.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area.
It really is.
And if you're interested in learning more about this,
Yeah.
definitely check out the source material.
Yeah, it's a great article.
It is, and it's a great starting point for exploring this topic.
It is, yeah. And if you have any questions or anything,
Mm-hmm.
feel free to reach out to us.
We'd love to hear.